morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and Disembodied Hands Queen Quindy, and our, I don't know, I can't come up with a good term for them, our executive minions? Executive minions, Justin and John. How are you all today? The Keekster is once again camped out by her cold air door and has decided to, yeah, they started doing that. They started doing the watch streak things. Oh, wait, I hear Clicky Paws. You coming, Clicky Paws? Papa? Are you coming? Are you coming? Are you gonna come in here and say hello? She's standing there looking at me. Are you gonna come? No? She's just decided it's not worth it. Oh, are you gonna come up and say hi? Come on up. Yay! We got a Keeker after all! There she is. Yay! We're blessed with a Kiki. Hi, pretty girl. Pretty girl got me up an hour early this morning, so I'm not pleased, but I guess I can be pleased. You silly goofus. You silly goofus. You're such a monster. How'd you get to be such a monster? How'd you get to be such a monster? Oh, my monster. I got her. Oh, you can't get away now. All right. Good girl. Oh, no teeth. No teeth. Keep going. Good girl. Yeah, there you go. You said hi. Good girl, Kiki. Good girl. Yeah, good girl. All right. Y'all got your puppy. No, she just was a whiner, and I am a really light sleeper. Like, ridiculously light sleeper when there's an animal in the house. Because I'm always paranoid. I always need to wake up right when something is starting to happen, right? I'm just going to put some lotion on my hands real quick here because it's dry today. It's been dry here for a bit now. And it just seems like I'm just getting dry hands. But yes, no, not... Yeah, you say that. But yeah, when she even so much as, like, squeaks, I wake up. Like, if it's not a normal Kiki noise for night, my brain recognizes that I should wake up and check on her. Which makes it really hard for me to get good sleep. But yes, cool. So hi guys. Today we're going to do Mousling. I'm still going back and forth on ideas for what I want to do with Mousling spacing. So what I think I'm going to do, yeah, and I used to be the same way with the cat hairball noises or the puppy barf noises, or yeah, the minute they start the hork noise, you're like bing. Yeah, just awake. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Well, and part of it's just because, like, I have shepherds. Bloat is a fear always with shepherds, and so even though it's not as common with Shilohs as with, I think, German Shepherds. I don't know that. I don't have the stats on that, so that could be just my supposition. But it doesn't seem like we get a lot of it. We still get it, though. So, and that's something where you got to catch it, like, quick and get them to the emergency vet. So I think that's just tuned my brain to wake up whenever my dog is restless. I just, like, instant. I do not have a tiny mousetrap. This is a big Mousling, anyway. It's much bigger than the usual Mouslings. But now I have, like, fingers that have greasy things on them. Curses! My lotion has backfired on me. Well, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. Let me just wipe off on the tissue. There we go. But yes, so what I'm thinking is, I don't know how I want to base him yet. But I'm thinking maybe we'll do a bigger display base for him. Maybe we'll use some putties and things to make some stones like I've been talking about, like David has done. Maybe we'll play around with that process. But until that point, I don't want to glue him onto his base, right? So, and his base is very small and simple anyway. Yep, you missed the Kiki. You'll have to go back and watch the VOD. Oh no. Well, happily, you only have to watch the very front part of the VOD to see the Kiki. Yikes. If you have a migraine, maybe you shouldn't watch this stream. Unless you can turn the brightness down a lot on your computer, Zachariah. Oh, yeah? Yeah, that's the risk with the conventions, right? And it always is. You're going to get the plague somewhere. Some kind of plague. Like, it just used to be con crud. Now it's, COVID con crud. COVID and con crud. But yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. That's a bummer, though. Although, you know, there's no way to really know. Not unless one of her friends comes up with it. But then, you know, who knows? It's probably hiding a lot these days. But it is what it is. Yeah, I'm sorry she's having to deal with that, though. Alrighty. So here we got a mouse. Ah! Did I glue him to his base? No. Oh, yeah, I did glue him to his base. Guess what? I'm not going to keep him on there, though. I am going to get some blue tack and stick him in there. I guess I could have just kept him in there. So this is what I was talking about a little bit the other day, where glue can get just a little bit brittle. As it gets older, super glue tends to get a little brittle, so keep an eye on how old your tube of super glue is. And also, if it's not a perfect join, then often you can just take and crack the model out of the glue. Adapted COVID? Yeah. Oh, nice, Kodiak. Nice. Awesome. Yay for committing and painting. Woo! Everybody give Kodiak a round of applause. Round of applause. Round of applause. Super awesome. I'm going to take just a little bit of blue tack here and stuff it onto these little areas that my mousy feet can go into. And we'll just do it that way. And that should keep him stuck on there. Okay-ish. If I have to, I can just pin him on there too. That's another option. With plastic, it's super easy. I could also just put a tiny dab of super glue and just stick him down enough. If the blue tack doesn't work, I'll do that. Enough, essentially using a tiny bit of super glue makes it easy to break them off. But yeah, since I decided we might do a displayer base for him since he's big, that's why I don't want to really glue him onto his base. Because his base is just a little bit with a bit of grass and flagstones. You guys can see it here. Let me get him in focus. Yeah, so easy to just kind of toss away. There's nothing super special about it. So prime model... when you've got a big model like this too that has just a tiny base, obviously that's just an invitation to do some more interesting basing on it. So yeah. Alrighty. So what are we going to start with? We probably start with fur. I also may want to do I probably won't do a brush on prime. The top of the hat is something that's not going to get touched a lot, so you probably don't need to brush some primer over that green. Probably not necessary. Also, I want to say at this point, you could take a real fine grit sanding stick, and if your green is not perfectly blended in, you could totally do that by just applying a nice fine grain sanding stick. I might have some around here somewhere. They usually come with sculpting kits. You can order them online. They're just little, let's see if I have them in here or if I put them in my other room. I have a couple of them, but they're for, for nail buffing and stuff like that. No, I don't have any in here. But yeah, sanding sticks, or you can cut a tiny piece of sandpaper and glue it to a stick and do it that way, but that's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, David had it, and I never got it. It's just, yeah. Alrighty, so if we look underneath here, we can see there is a slight gap between the hat and the head, but I'm not really worried about that. It's going to be pretty well hidden, and when we go to glue the hat on, I can make sure to compress it and make sure that it glues itself very well. But we just kind of make a mental note that the hat is a little gappy and might need something later on. If you come up with this on a resin piece, that's where you're going to heat up the resin in some boiling water and then put it onto the model and press it so that it conforms the way you want it to, and then let it set in cold water. I'm thinking I'm mostly going to... I'm not going to touch the base because the base is going to be... I'm going to toss this base, Pendrake. I'm not going to use it. So really there's only two pieces. But yeah, I was thinking about giving him a tombstone, but I haven't decided on that yet. So the first thing to decide is the fur color. And we probably want to, at the same time, kind of decide what color his jacket's going to be. So he's got that kind of duster kind of thing with the capelet around the mantle around the shoulders, and then it's a long coat. And he's got a little shirt on underneath it. And then little boots, which are probably going to be leather. So I originally had thought perhaps a dark blue. No, you managed to not do that, Quindy. Grats. The gap is right up between the head and the hat, Pendrake. See that dark shadow? It means the hat is not firmly up on there. Yeah, you could do this, guys. Roland. Alrighty. But yeah, so I was kind of originally thinking of going with a richer color for his fur, but then I kind of was thinking maybe I want to actually go like a grizzled kind of dark gray brown, but with lighter cream markings around his face. We did, the last Mousling I did was just uniform and didn't have any markings. If I go dark fur, I really want to go lighter around the eyes and muzzle because the problem is the hat is overhanging the face so much. So you need a light color there to bring out the details because there is going to be a shadow. That would be kind of boring though. I think Van Helsing technically is traditionally in black. Let's see here. Wow, IMDb just hated that movie. Yeah, he's all in like gray and black, which is great when you've got a pale skin tone. Yeah, all in black leather. Oh, there's a good still. Yeah, so this would be the most boring color scheme ever to grace a model. That's the thing. So he's got brown hair. That's the 2004 Van Helsing. But yeah, of course, there's all different Van Helsings. Many Van Helsings. But they're all dour. They're all dour. Yeah. That's why I thought I would go with a dark blue. When you're looking to like kind of emulate a character and they're all in black, the best thing to do if you want to keep that moody ambient, but you don't want to go quite all in on it, is to make it a dark purple or dark blue. I liked the werewolves in it, but yeah, it sucked plot-wise. But I loved the werewolves. The werewolves were very well done in Van Helsing. But yeah. Well, I mean, I'm already planning to put lighter markings on the face, so that's not a problem. I can go dark with the fur and not have a problem with that because I'll do that. But you can always... A lot of color variants, yeah. Yeah, I just want him still to be kind of grizzled and dark, so I was really thinking maybe going like a blackened brown and white or a walnut and white. The walnut will make a gray when I highlight it. But then we've got to do something extra with the coat to make it different, right? You can paint a model all in darks, just like we did with the Necromancer. You just need to have bits of brightness here and there, and you really have to watch where you put them. Because if you put them in the wrong places, that's when you really get into... that's when you really get into trouble with trying to bring emphasis to the right model. Or the right part of the model. So right here, yeah, his weapons are going to be shiny because they're going to have some metal on them. They've got metal bits. This is probably brass. That's probably brass. This is probably steel. He's got a buckle up there to bring your attention to the hat. We could do a red hat band. I'm all in for that. If we wanted to get red as an accent color, it's a little difficult to know where else we would put it. Maybe on his chest. That would probably be the way I would do it. This is a hard model to keep the focal point on because the face is so in shadow. So we'll do what we can to pick it up, but I'm up for a grayish brown, kind of grizzled brown fur, really dark, with maybe a dark blue for the coat and a red accent. I think that's what I'm going for at this point. So yeah, so let's rock with that. But yeah, the hat is a little bit wobbly, so it does not quite sit. There's a little bit of gap between the ears and the hat up there. So even though, which is sad because it does have the imprint there to help it with that. Now I could probably put it into hot water and try to make it work that way, because there's still a gap, and a lot of people probably aren't going to notice the gap. The other thing I could do is try to fill it with, say, primer. I mean, you could do, this is the model, and I'm actually doing a PDF on this. By the way, for a $2 tier Patreon this month, yeah, we're going to have to glue those feet on. I'll do that while I do this. I'll have to re-glue the feet. For the Patreon this month, I am doing a how to know when it's a good idea to do a OSL. Like, how do you determine if a model, an area of a model, or a model itself will be a good OSL model? That's the what I'm doing a $2 PDF on this month. It's not going to be a real long one because, you know, $2. But I want to talk. I always have to talk about this because, you know, people say, why don't you make this glow? And I'm like, This, however, is one of the times you could actually sculpt that cigar and make it glow. Except that Mouslings are cute and kids like them, and I don't like to encourage smoking. Normally, the way to get the goo out of here, by the way, is to grab the sticky tack and pull at it. However, when it doesn't want to come out, that's when you get your knife and you get most of it out. And then you go in with your bigger blob and you try to drag the rest of it out. I mean, yeah, you totally could use green stuff. I'm just lazy, Hendrik. I don't want to. I mean, green stuffing it is super easy. Relatively speaking, I'm just lazy. And it's not that big of a gap, so if I was feeling more industrious, or this was competition level mini, then yeah, I would do a ruin of green. That's a perfectly viable answer. Perfectly viable. And it's just sleep deprived thanks to Kiki and like not up for it today. Sometimes you just nope out. Sometimes you just nope out. Alrighty. There we go. Good enough. Yeah, and I don't nope often. Like I don't always nope. Like you can set that nope boundary, but be aware when you're noping out. Like if you notice you nope out a lot when it comes to a certain stage of the model, stop yourself and kind of examine why you're noping out. Because it could just be that part of you is frustrated with a very specific thing, like the way you're approaching the project, and that if you would change the way that you approach the project, you would stop noping. So be aware that your brain is always trying to save you from like frustration or pain. And it often has cute little psych tricks that it pulls on you to do that. And one of those things can be the auto nope. Like if you've got a brain that loves planning, if you try to be spontaneous and fun, your brain may auto nope. Even though it might be good for you to be spontaneous and fun sometimes. So just be aware that the nope isn't always like, it doesn't always mean that the very essence of me, it just says, no, this is not for me. It could mean no, my brain is feeling lazy, or it just doesn't like that I didn't plan enough, right? So just kind of like figure that. Be aware. Be aware. A lot of times we're told to trust our guts, but sometimes our guts are actually not a very good judge. Like a part of our gut is just the one that's being the troublemaker, and the rest of our guts are all for it. So yeah, that's a problem. No, I never have Kodiak because it's not a thing I typically enjoy. The problem with muzzle flash is the same problem as with everything. The only time I've seen muzzle flash OSL work is if it's more like something like a flamethrower, where you've got a big burst. Muzzle flash is otherwise very hard to do because usually it's accompanied by a lot of smoke, right? Which is going to block some of that. The muzzle flash itself is so instantaneous that I feel like it's overdone, and also it's way out here. So if the muzzle flash is way out here, then that means that a lot of light wouldn't actually hit the model. The only time you'd really see the muzzle flash is if you had dark, if it was dark out, right? And that's something we've talked about before with OSL, is that you have to think about like where you are with the model. Now with a model like this with a hat, which creates a manufactured shadow, could you get away with it? Maybe. You'd have to still find a way to make a realistic muzzle flash effect here, though. Yeah. Try to figure out why you're noping. Like, that's the best thing you can do. Yeah, yes. Yes, Quindy. Because actually, this is exactly a thing. This is a thing I'm listening to a book I shared with you guys the other day, Seth Godin. And he had an interesting thing in the chapter last night where he was like, you need to learn to say no if you're a creative, because otherwise you're never going to get the work done, right? You're never going to get the most important thing done. If you keep saying yes to everyone, and this was big with me because when I was younger, I said yes to everything. And so I had to learn to set boundaries and say no's. But then he said, however, be aware that if you get into that no pattern, and it's very comforting for you, that it can actually detract and isolate you from others. And that may be just what you don't need to do in the end. So you need to kind of like every once in a while, say a yes when it's for the sake of building relationships with people you like or whatever, things like that. Now, work functions, I said, I noped out of an awful lot of Reaper lunches, and I kind of regret that now because honestly, I could have spent more time with Ed, right? So always kind of like think about your auto nopes and see if they're really serving you or if they're just a comforting place you like to hide. Like it's just another way to hide sometimes. And we need to not hide all the time, or the good parts of us aren't really being available for other people. So just a thought, not true of everybody, but I like to share this stuff. You know it. Right, yeah, Shadow Raven, right? There would be a flash, and it comes out the end of the gun, but it is also directed, right? It's a directed flash, so it's mostly going to make light up and front. Let me see if I can find a picture. Actually, if we can find a picture, yeah, think about the physics. Like, you can't do OSL Kodiak without thinking about the physics of what you're doing. So, hold on. Let me see if I can find a good picture. So there's a fair muzzle flash. Let's see. Some of this stuff's going to be okay. So that's the thing, right? Is it's going to come out and it's going to spread, and you can kind of see here that the light is really going to be strongest right here, right? But it might not even really go back far enough. Like it's not really hitting that little the little sights there on top of the gun. It's just picking them up a little bit. It's brightest here. But remember that light fades exponentially, and I mean exponentially. It goes down that much with every step further away from the light. So, yeah, you like being isolated from your coworkers. That's fair, Quindy, as long as you're not isolating yourself from everybody. And the other thing is here, like, yeah, we've got that muzzle flash looks like that. There's shapes of muzzle flashes depending on the firearm. Let me see if I liked that photograph. That's that's an art rendition, and it's way too broad. Way too bright. Oh my gosh, is it so way too bright? Okay, so what this is actually reading like, so this is a piece of art. that's trying to mimic it. And this part is right. But all that we're really seeing here is ambient light from a different light source. That isn't reading like the muzzle flashlight at all. So it wouldn't really go back very far. Yeah, and it wouldn't be very strong, I think, Pendrake. I find it, that's why I find it best if it's like a flamethrower. Oh, wait, I think I found an actual photograph. Okay, but it went away. Why did it go away? I needed that. I needed that actual photograph. Hold on. Let me like specify photo. And see if I can get it. And during the daytime, you're probably not going to see it at all. Wow, and those are big. Those are like, are those rifles? Okay, this is interesting. So this kind of shows you. So this is a normally lit area. They've got these big muzzle flashes, but it's normal lighting, right? There's obviously a light over here. And what you really see is that only this guy, are you seeing a bit of the orange light there from muzzle flash, right? Otherwise, the other light is totally taking it all over. So that's when we're talking about, if you're going to do OSL, painting the rest of the model as if it's evening or dim light is really something you want to do, because otherwise, even with this bright of a muzzle flash, you are seeing the spotlight, the artificial light, you're seeing that more strongly than the muzzle flash. Even with a flash that's that big. Yeah, but these are just rifles. They're not actually black powder. Yeah, right. Yeah, so essentially, in order to do this, you have to have some sort of dimness. Now we have the hat, so we might be able to, but the other reason you don't like it, here's another reason you don't like it, is that the gun is so far away from the model. We'd have this huge explosion of light way out here, and it takes us totally away from the model. So this is all stuff that I'm going to talk about kind of on the PDF. I'll cover it in small part, and then if people want more, I can always do more in a bigger PDF. I just already have my $10 PDF planned for this month, and I needed something for 2. Yeah. You'd get maybe a little bit of ruddy color, like ruddy light here. Just looking at that photograph. A little bit of ruddy light here on the cheek probably, but that's it. It would not be a strong effect. People overdo OSL all the time, and it drives David batty. So I'm going to do just a tiny bit of glue, because I know I can break this again. Because I realized that why I probably glued this in the first place was that I needed it to be strong, and the sticky tack was not going to cut it. So I'm going to stick him in, I'm going to let him sit, and while he sets, I am going to set up my paint. Okay, while he is recalcitrant and doesn't want to set, I will attempt to set up my paint. Here, sit and stay, mouse. I'm going to move him out of frame. We'll keep his ears in frame. All right. Well, what do you mean, Pendrake? I mean, like if you were doing a glow effect? Okay, so this is a model that you couldn't do a glow effect with the eyes for sure, because it's way in the shadow. Yeah, I'm not going to do a glow in the dark. He's not irradiated. I'm sorry, he's not Spider. He's not the superhero who like got irradiated. I want to do a different, I kind of want to do a slightly different color. Maybe I'll do nut brown. Do a little bit of a different thing this time. Let me see what I've got here. Or maybe I'll bring in maybe I'll do ebony flesh and bring that up and see. Well, that's going to be too brown. I have an idea in my head of what I want, and I'll do walnut, but I'll mix in a little bit of nut brown, I think is what I'm going to do. I think that's what I'm going to do with my color. So we're going to mix a custom color for his fur. We're going to do walnut because I want that gray tone. But we're going to add a little bit of nut brown to it, and we're going to add some white. So it's going to be starting with a darker gray with a little bit of brown in it. Oh, no, I wasn't. Kodiak asked about muzzle flash. I was not thinking about lighting the face. That was entirely other people. And this brings us to the number one rule about OSL, which is that you never make something glow if it casts a natural shadow. All y'all. It can be very hard. The only time it works is if there's enough way for the light to get in that allows you to create that illusion. But here is a model where it just barely will work, and only if the model is very well lit. So Anubis has that fire glow that goes in. See it there underneath there? And the only reason that a recessed area like this works with the fire glow is because there's enough openness here to allow ambient light in to light that up. If there wasn't enough of that in there, this would totally fail. Yeah, you know me, Kodiak. I just like to talk about like why it works, why it won't. Especially with OSL because so many people do it badly. Yeah. Quindy. But anyway, so this is one of the things, and you can see that when I tilt it and allow more light in, you can really see the lighting, and you don't get much of it when the model is just naturally, being viewed. So that's the problematic part of this model. You've got a glowing light source that you can't ignore, but you also have an almost impossible area to light. So yeah, but it's very hard to see. And it's almost impossible. And the only reason it's not impossible is that there's still enough room here, and that light can get in to hit that undercut, so you can see it. Otherwise, it would be just not doable. And you won't get a lot of light on the rest of this because the rest of this is obviously in daylight. So although I may bring in a little bit of yellow when it's really close to the bone there, it's not going to overpower anything else in this area. The only place you're really going to see the fire is there, and I went a slightly warmer highlight on his knee, so you get kind of that effect. I could take it a little bit more orange there, but that would be too much. It would be purely to sell the lighting effect and not realistic at all. But yeah, so this is a very problematic lighting. This model has a very problematic lighting. That's why I didn't go totally in on it, because I was like, that's terrible placement. It's terrible placement. Now, if I had painted him as if he was in shadow, then I could do a whole bunch of lighting, but it still wouldn't sell. In fact, that would have made a worse decision, right? Because if I painted him like everything was in shadow, I'd still have the problem of this part being actually in natural shadow and not showing up very well. So it's supposed to be bright, but it's not bright because you're fighting the shadow. So whenever you have a model that you are, that the flame or the whatever, or the effect that you're thinking about doing, would be in a natural shadow, say no. Because it's just never going to look quite right. And that's why we can't make his eyes glow, is because anywhere at all natural, look at that hard shadow underneath the hat. So in order to do it, we'd have to actually trim down his hat and make it narrower side to side, or make the brim much more shallow so that real light could get in. But right now, I could try to pop bright into those eyes all day, and it's not going to read right. It's going to read wrong. It's not going to be convincing. So yeah. The only way to do it is as Kodiak mentioned, is to make a light source that's down here somewhere, right? But out here would be very distracting. So if he had a cigar, that would be actually the best probably usage. The best way to do it would be to give him a cigar and paint him kind of like dusky colors. Like it could be outside in the evening, so the cigar flares bright. But yeah, so anyway, I'll stop ranting. But seriously, folks, seriously, think about your OSL. The cigar is also the best choice because it's short and right next to his face. So you're drawing the eye to where you want it, instead of putting a big fire out here where everybody will look, and then they might notice your Mousling. Yeah, doing a sunset maybe from one side and then the cool side being where the stogie's hanging out of his mouth. Like, so do golden hour on one side and because you can do that evening slanted lighting. David just did it on a figure. It's hard to pull off though because of the shadows. You got to get the shadows perfect. Yeah, probably Quindy, but you know, who really watches us? As Justin tunes in right at that moment. Reaper models, not flammable. This is why we use water-based paint. All right, let's get this walnut out here. Do 2 big drops of walnut. I'm going to do 1 drop of nut brown and see what I get. And I think I'm going to use creamy ivory today to highlight this. It's one of my more favored choices for mixing with walnut when I'm doing animals, getting a more natural effect. Is she on your bad side, Quindy? I'm gonna do 1 drop. Now we'll see what color we get. We'll see if that's the color I've got in mind. If it's a color I can work with. Remember, the more grayed out, the more neutral gray we are, we don't have to worry about color clash so much. But if we get any significant amount of real color in with that gray, then we're in trouble because then we have to mute everything. We're not really in trouble. We'll do it anyway because I like muted color schemes. But hold on, I need to get straightened up here. Camera got knocked out of whack. So that's nut brown, walnut, and creamy ivory, and we will mix it up. Hopefully people won't set fire to their minis. So I don't think I'm going to be doing, oh yeah, I like this color. This is actually a good color. Interesting. I like this color. It's a warm, smoky brown. I kind of really like it. It's, where's my black base? Where did black base go? Oh, I've got a couple of them. They're all hiding over here. So that's like that smoky, a real smoky brownish black. You see it? So I like that color. That's actually pretty. So let's do that. Let's do that. And then we'll highlight from there. And since I used creamy ivory to build the color, the base fur color, I'll just use that when I'm bringing up the lighter fur around his muzzle and eyes. And I'm gonna not bring it up a lot, like right here, but the light starts hitting around the cheekbones, so I can. So we are doing an OSL actually. We are doing I should say not an OSL, but we're doing actually. We're going to be depicting our shadows. We're not going to do the whole fudge it and just paint the whole face like normal and then put the hat on it. We're actually going to paint in the shadow area of the face. Crowley and you are on a face. On a page. On a page. We don't know if it's a good page. Might be kind of a sketchy page. So I sent my cover designer the file for the dust cover, hardcover version of my book yesterday. So I had to go and download the template in the size I wanted. You go to Ingram's and you essentially give them all of the info about your book, and then it custom generates a template for your designer to use. All right, so we're going to paint the whole face dark to start with, I think, and then bring everything up. So I like this brown, though. It is a very smoky dark brown. It does have a tiny hint of purple to it, but it's not enough to, like, seriously. Maybe I'll do some wet blend. Where is my thing? Let's do smooshing. Let's do smooshing. Want to do smooshing? Wet blending? Both of these will be thinned 4:1. Since I didn't put a base coat down, so I need them to be pretty thick. 4:1 being my minimum base coat, and both of these colors have pretty good coverage. How to test the new durability. The durability of the 3D printed models. Set it on fire. It would be a good comedy piece. It would have been a good April Fool's, but we're too late. We're too late. We missed our opportunity there for marketing. Bye, green users. I hope you have a fun day. I hope it's warm where you are. It's supposed to be in the mid-60s today here. All right, so wet blending. We want to put down our color. Now I want these areas up near the hat to be pretty dark. So put down our color, then smoosh a little bit of our other color into it. Let's grab some of that. Smoosh, 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 smoosh. And you can either smoosh with the dark color still on your brush, as I'm doing right here, and that will give you a lot of a darker result. Or you could try to rinse out your brush, grab your light color and smush it in. That would give you a lighter result. So let's do that. Let's grab our dark. And I usually start with my dark and then work my light in. Let's grab, I'm gonna rinse out my brush, grab some of that creamy ivory, and that is gonna give me more impact, hypothetically, from the creamy ivory. Although I added a lot, you can see it. I did add a lot of my base coat there, so it's taking a little more than I thought. Probably I should just add a little bit more creamy ivory to my mix. But if you do the wet blend over texture, especially like this, it's a great idea because it gives you the highlight, the blended appearance of the highlight. The texture essentially will hide your brush strokes. So it makes it a lot easier to blend when you've got a slightly textured surface. I'm going to put one more drop in, so it's a 5-to-1 with my creamy ivory because the walnut is just very powerful. So it's hard for the creamy ivory to make much inroads on that paint unless I thicken it up a little. Oh yeah, I had a cat who hunted my minis at one point. Alrighty, let's get this going on. Might want to bring this up just a little bit more. I'm just messing around to see if this is really the color I want or if I want to bring it up toward gray a little bit more. Maybe I'll bring a brush full over into my base mix. Make it a little grayer. Now this does double down on the purpley color because walnut already can tend to go a little purple when you mix an off-white into it. And the reason for that is that walnut is made with red oxide, and red plus black tends to be purple. So you end up with kind of a purpley shift, a purpley gray shift when you mix those colors. Yeah, I think I want to make him kind of have grayish, gray fringe here. So as long as the paint is wet, I can throw other paint into it. The minute it starts to dry, you have to stop wet blending or you're going to rip up your progress. If it's already dry, you could just dab in and accentuate the highlight. But the more purpley gray we get, the more dangerous it is as far as we won't be able to use very bright colors. We'll have to mute our other colors. We're already planning to go kind of dark for our blue, so that will mute out our blue, but we might want to mute it even more if we stick to this color. And we could probably go for a dark red as well and just not bring it up really saturated. Oh, fun thing. You guys get to totally like steal from my, actually David, since he paid for it, steal as if you were there. Not really, but Mark Masklins is doing a class out here. We found out in a week and a half. We found out very late, but there was still 2 seats available. So David decided, I said, I unnoped, because normally, you know, I want to just sit home and write. So I unnoped and said, no, let's go together. And so we're going to the Mark Masklins seminar. It's 2-day. It's a 2-day one. It's one of those expensive European painter seminars. But if I learn anything fun, as I probably will do, I will share. Just like I shared like some of the stuff I learned from Kirill. That said, and I've said this before, but if you do get an opportunity to take a high-end seminar with a really good painter, do so. And try to go in with, not to go all zen on you, but try to go in with beginner's mind. That was my biggest mistake back when I first started taking these things, when we brought Jeremy Bonamont in from France for ReaperCon. I was not in the mental place I needed to be for that seminar. I would have learned a lot more if I had let myself just totally do things the way Jeremy did. Like just taking a chance and totally broken out of my mold. But I only got to that point with Kirill's seminar. And then by the time I was in Sergio's seminar, I had that mindset down so that I could just reset my brain and just say, don't judge it, don't think about it, just do what they're doing. It's harder the more you learn to get to that place in your head when you take a class. You're always kind of comparing and judging what you're learning, comparing it to other classes you've taken and your own experience and all that stuff, right? But you actually get the most out of an advanced painting class by trying to reset your brain and just give it a chance to try to do things exactly the way that the instructor is. You should not Kodiak because you will be frustrated. I have seen this happen at the Kirill seminar. We had a couple of people who were very beginner to just learning to be intermediate, and they were very frustrated, and Kirill had to spend a lot of extra time trying to make sure they were happy. So no, you should get to an intermediate point where you are familiar with layering, and intermediate, mind you, isn't like super, super high level. It just means you've practiced your layering, you've practiced glazing, you've practiced, Yeah, no, I'm totally going to be honest with you, because as an instructor myself, that the problem with people who are not quite up there enough is you're trying to talk about something advanced like textures, and they can't even layer, right? And you need to be able to layer to do textures. So there are definitely like techniques that you want to have a grip on. You don't have to be expert in them. You may, totally fudge them from time to time, but you have to know at least the theory behind how to layer and glaze and have tried it, exercised it on a couple of models. And I would say that with advanced painters, it varies by the painter. Some of them you definitely want a lot of brush control. I would say Kirill's class and probably Mark's, because Mark does crazy freehand. Those are the classes you'd want to have a pretty good brush control to go and get something from. I wouldn't say it's not beginner. Like essentially that when you're a beginner, you are base coating, washing, dry brushing, doing basic block highlights, but you don't really understand how to thin your paint yet, so you're not really glazing and you're not really layering. When you've gotten through the layer up kit with Rhonda's layer up kit and you're practicing your layering and getting better at it, and your brush control is enough that you can neatly paint a figure, maybe you're lining a little bit and you're studying some color and some light, maybe you try OSL on a figure or you try NMM, you know, and you still need work, but you kind of have a grasp of the technical abilities, that's when you can start taking those classes. But with almost all the Europeans, they have a lot of emphasis on lighting. Like, because they really teach it like breathing. Like we don't here in the States. You get a lot of just like base coat wash, right? That's not how they teach over there. So think about at least have an idea of zenith priming / overhead lighting going in. And I think then you're fine. But if you know how to layer and you understand, like, you may not be great at it, but you know how to layer and hypothetically to glaze, you're an intermediate painter. You're not a beginner. Yeah, exactly. You want to maybe take a couple of Aaron Lovejoy's classes. His, I think, are pretty accessible and not super high level. At least he's got some that are more accessible. But a lot of these guys, you know, we're paying, paint clubs are paying to fly them in from Europe to do like 3 seminars, or they're keeping them on after Adepticon and paying for half their airfare, you know, to have them do 3 seminars, or paying for their airfare from city to city. And so they're going to teach at the top of their level, right? That's what they prefer to do. I would say Sergio was very accessible to an intermediate painter, actually. Yeah, they're world-class painters, and that's what the students want from them. You wouldn't pay $400 a seat if you didn't want world-class. Yeah. When I did my class, the one 2-day seminar that I did in Napa before I moved out here, I only charged about $225 a head, and I was very much teaching at an intermediate level to pop you up above that, right? I did talk about textures. I did talk about NMM. I talked a lot about color because that's me. But so some people, usually a more local instructor may teach at that level. But like then you've got Steve Garcia. He's doing a seminar down in Austin soon. But he is like, I'll bet he's teaching at a higher level. And you should always kind of ask what level of painter. And they'll tell you if it's an advanced class. Usually the organizer will have a clue. But yeah, so your first job as a newbie painter is to learn the basics of like zenith, highlighting, base coating, washing, you know, kind of experience that. And then start doing things like practice. Like usually if you're a beginning painter and you even start lining, you'll see a huge jump in quality, like because everything will stand out so much better. And then when you actually start thinning your paint and trying to like thin your paint and layer the highlights on instead of just putting the highlights on with paint that isn't very thin, then you'll notice another jump, you know. And then when you learn to glaze to kind of like get everything to tie together or to change colors or whatever you want to do, then you're definitely at the level where you can take advantage. There really isn't war shadow art. If there was, we would have known about it a lot sooner, right? Okay, I won't say that. Our hub is on Facebook. It's the San Francisco Bay Area Mini Painters page, but Dave and I don't do Facebook. Like, I only do Facebook for business, and I kind of go in tactically, and I don't look around. So I would have missed it just because I would never have gone to that group. So yeah, so there are Facebook groups, usually in my experience, that's where you're going to find this, is if you look for a painting group in your area, they will often have a Facebook group for that, and that is where they drum up people for this kind of thing. I don't remember who's, actually it's Steven Garcia, but he's local. He's local, Twisted Oma. But yeah, make sure your son is like a fairly advanced painter. Steve is really good, like with comic book. Like he's got he did that Lion-O, that Thundercats Lion-O from, if you guys remember it, from ReaperCon a couple of years ago and Adepticon. And he sculpted it. No, wait, he converted it and then he painted it, I think. I don't think it was a scratch sculpt. Maybe I'm wrong though. But so if you remember that model, that's Steve Garcia. So Crows, the biggest thing with self-motivation, I think, is remembering why you took up the hobby in the first place. Like, what were you looking for from it? Usually when we lose motivation to paint, it's because we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. I'm going to just block in the muzzle lighter, guys, just so you know. Like, we may have put a lot of pressure on ourselves to improve, or we may have put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get things done and gotten all disappointed in ourselves. Maybe we didn't hit the goals that we thought we should be hitting as far as learning. But usually it's us getting, or we got comparisonitis where, you know, we're like, I'm never going to be good enough at, never going to be as good as X person. You know, or we were too focused on the outcome of finishing a thing and not enjoying just painting. That's another thing that can trip us up. Motivation is always something that, those things tend to be where it's coming from. So kind of like do a number on yourself, and if any of those things resonated, then you know how to, then you already know how to like work on it, right? I'm gonna grab Mises have pink noses or black noses? One second, let me look up a gray mouse. Mouse. A pink nose, black nose. Sometimes they have pink noses, sometimes they have black noses. I should say black mouse. Let me see. They still have pink noses. They still have pink noses. It's a cute little pink nose. All right. So yes, it's a pink nose for this guy. Comparisonitis. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so then he might really benefit from it. The thing to remember when you take a class from a high-level painter is that they're going to teach you in their style. So just like I said, the first thing that I said when we started talking about this, where you've got to kind of reset your brain, and even if what the painter is talking about is stuff that seems to run contrary to stuff you already know, go in with an open mind. Try very hard to go in with just beginner's brain. Reset yourself, assume you know nothing, try to go along with them and see their perspective on why they do it this way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It could be, if it's not a mental block, if it's not any of those things, it could just be that you need a break or you need a rest or you need to give your brain some time to rejuvenate, or it could be that you should put away all of your current projects. If you're looking at them and you're going, you should do an and. You should either toss them away. If you're never going to work on them again, ask yourself very, very seriously, am I ever going to work on this sucker again? No? All right. Throw it away or put it in a box. Wrap it up nice. Get it out of your vision. Get your paint area all nice and clean. And then pick a model that you've wanted to work on for ages and put it there on the table and see if it speaks to you. Don't set it on fire, though. Yeah, don't set it on fire. Right, yeah. My favorite picture about that is actually a picture of a guy juggling plates up on stage, but behind him, behind the curtain, there's a stairway, and all down this long stairway, there are broken plates. Just shattered plates everywhere. And that's exactly how it is. Like, you guys just didn't see all the struggle that I went through over the years to try to get good. Because it was over such a long period of time. Well, so then sometimes those classes can be like that when you're at a slightly higher level Kodiak. The classes can do that function for you, because if you take your brain offline and you just do it along with the instructor, you can get that kind of relaxed thing. You got to let yourself not get pressure. Because, like, the instructor is going to come around and look at your work, so you can't go, oh my gosh, I have to do this perfectly. You have to go, I'm just going to try this and see how it works. And I'm going to have fun. And then if I'm not executing in quite the way that the instructor wants me to, they're going to tell me about it, but it's not a personal judgment call. He's just trying to help me get into his mindset. I think, yeah, beware of that, crows, because I used to do that crap too, and what I found is that my brain very easily goes into overwhelm mode. Like, the day that I finally realized that I really just need to have a few models out, and that's it. It doesn't mean I can't work on or have other models in progress, but it means I must put them away. I must keep them away. 2 to 3 models on my tabletop, tops. And even 3 sometimes feels like a lot if they're all at a beginning stage. So it is definitely a thing. And 15, in my opinion, is way too many. Way too many. Think about how decision paralysis our brains get, especially if you're trying to paint later in the day. Remember that willpower is an actual thing that we run out of during the day, and that's part of what can cause decision paralysis later in the day. We just don't have enough oomph left to actually make a decision. And so if you're trying to paint later in the day, especially, and you're like tired and unmotivated when you look at all those models, your brain is just saying, no way, it's too much. So chances are, if you put away 13 of those 15 models and just left 2 out, or if you put them all away and just started something new, refreshed your brain with a new topic, and then just work on that. See how working on just one thing, a little bit at a time, does for you. And if it solves the problem, then you know, right? This is how we all figure out, like, how to... It's all just trying to trick your brain. Everything in life is figuring out, how do I have to trick my brain to get through this? Weight loss, exercising regularly, painting regularly. It's all like, what is my brain doing to undermine me right now, and how can I trick it? Yeah. And what people call talent is probably just, honestly, like, as a little kid, I was exposed to art stuff a lot. And so I was always trying to draw things. And so by the time I was five, I could draw things better than other kids, right? Because I've been trying since I was 3. Since I was enough to, like, hold a pencil, I was trying to color in the lines and draw things, right? Because I liked it. I wanted to do it. So everybody else says talent, but actually when you're a kid, it's usually just a predisposition. And it could be a predisposition that you've gotten, like with Tiger Woods. His dad used to take him out as a toddler into the garage when he was hitting balls, right? And doing his putting things. So Tiger got exposed at a really young age to golf and got interested in it. So when he hit, like, as a mid-grade kid, he already had more of an understanding than other kids, and they say he's talented, but no, not really. He just has already a predisposition in place to engage with that thing, right? And then as you get older, of course, then you compound on that. So, and same with writing. Like, I was reading from a really, really young age and all that. So it, it just gives you an understanding of story structure and stuff like that. Like, and I was trying to write too. Yay, desk cleaning day! Go crows! And plus, desk cleaning just feels good. David did it the other night. David did it when I was walking, out on my walk, and he was waiting for me to come back to play Overwatch. He's just like, you know what? I'm done with this. He cleaned off his whole desk. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and phone apps definitely can work. Like, they can work. They don't work for me. Like, I'll tell you that, Zachariah. So be aware, like, phone apps that nag you can work for you. If they work for you in other things, then yes, try that one. What is it, Zachariah? What's the name of the app? And Shadow Raven, it's the way to think about it. It's just because they're showing you a thing and correcting you. They're just trying to show you how they do it. And it's not a judgment call on how you've done it. It's just them showing, okay, that's not the way I do it. Let me show you the way I do it. Execute that. And then you can choose. Then you've got both ways in your toolbox, right? So if you think of it, even if the person is a bully and just isn't that cool, think of it that way. Think of it that way. Reframe it. Yeah, the more I practice, the luckier I get. Exactly. Thanks, imagine. Yeah, that. Oh, good. CVP is saying thank you very loudly. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's what it is, guys. Like, that's what talent is. Talent just means that as a kid, you were exposed to X and your brain latched onto it for whatever reason. And so you engaged with it, right? And as a little kid, maybe you couldn't engage very much, but you engaged just that little bit more than any other kid did. Maybe other kids were just digging holes in the yard while you were trying to draw a tiger, right? And so you end up getting to grade 1, grade 2, and you can draw a recognizable tiger while other kids are still having wobbly apples, you know? And so they're like, you're talented. And it's like, well, no, not really, right? It's just the time. It's the time and the love and the effort. And then you just get, as you say, you just get luckier. You do it. The more you work, the more lucky you get. The more I paint, the better I get. Like the more, and it isn't even necessarily a better thing. It's, I get better at different techniques. Like now when you get to my level where you're a good painter, you know, you can just paint well out the gate just as you do it. Then the value comes in learning from different painters and learning different ways to get to point B and different styles, right? And then integrating parts of that into your style when it gets you excited about stuff, right? So that's why I'm taking this Mark Maslin's class, is that learning from a painter who does it slightly differently from me gets me excited again. And it also gives me ideas for how I can integrate some of that into my current painting, so... Oh, that's good. That's good, Zachariah. Yeah, if it gives you a reminder right before you're off of work, that's actually fantastic. Because then your brain goes, oh yeah, and it focuses, right at the end of work. That's really clever. Right. Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah, your kid's doing it, right? And when they apply themselves, then they're going to start out at a little bit of a higher rung than the kids that aren't in that particular thing, right? And so maybe they'll be told they're talented at that thing, and then they might choose to double down, right? Not always, Pendrick. Sometimes it's just being interested. Like messing around with art when you're a little kid, or maybe instead you like to study dinosaurs. Maybe instead you decide you like to read about you like to play with things and make mixes in chemistry or something. You're mixing together like different soaps and kids play and they play with a whole bunch of different things, and in the course of that, their brains, which definitely you're right on one thing that is true as far as recognizing what it can become better at it. I don't think it's what you can become better at, but I think you've got a range of things you can become better at, and your brain just kind of like your natural interests are drawn to a particular way and thing of doing it, right? So I think we can become better at a lot of things, but through trial and error and just our personal interests and the way that our brains are wired, we arrive at the one or the couple things that we're really intrigued by, right? And sometimes it takes... Hello, Polly. Yeah, we're in the middle of talking about like motivation, learning, talent, and skill, all that kind of thing. I do a lot of that. There are definitely, as far as parts of your personality, there are probably things that you would be better or worse at just based on, like how high your focus level is, how much innate, how attracted are you to like discipline, right? And structure, or are you not attracted to that at all? Do you have to freeform life, right? And all those things are going to you'll be attracted probably to different disciplines, different things, pastimes, if you will, hobbies, based on kind of like what your natural, like what kind of things your brain is drawn to. Because maybe your brain really loves to engage with people. You're going to be drawn to things that pull you in that direction, right? Maybe you're a total introvert who would rather just sit in a cave all day, like our beloved Quindy, ruling the internet from a position of authority. But yeah, we're doing, this is the fun size Mousling Poly. So I did some green work so that his ears actually looked like they were coming up through his hat instead of just sticking up out of it. He's kind of a Van Helsing Mousling. So right now I'm just laying down fur colors and kind of figuring out what I'm going to do. Right. So even though you weren't great at math, you may have been better at engineering or mechanics or something like that, right, Shadow Raven? Whereas David loves algorithms and abstract thinking, and so he's very good at math and algorithms and computer programming type stuff. Painting for a living is a challenge. And it sometimes wrecks your love of your hobby. It's not for everybody. Have you ever freelanced before, Crows? In any discipline? The internet is unruly. You prefer your lair. Yeah, I know you, Quindy. Yeah, there is, I believe, Pendrake. I thought I painted him a ReaperCon several ReaperCons ago. Oh, okay. So if you've freelanced before, then you understand the amount of effort and stick-to-itiveness it takes to keep yourself on task. And that's probably the most important thing. But then kind of apply that. Could you do that, under pressure, under deadline for painting? Would you still enjoy it afterwards? We all think we will, but sometimes the answer is maybe not. I burned out pretty badly the first time I tried freelancing. I went into the next bit of life as a freelancer with that understanding of what doesn't work for me, and now I'm much happier. But the freelancing landscape for painting has changed a lot in those 20 years. 20 years, oh my gosh. Stick-to-itiveness, I love that word. Yes. Moonlight. Yes. Yeah. That's another, you'll hear that a lot. My boss is a real jerk. I work for myself. Because we were usually, if you think about it, we are much more demanding of ourselves than other people. So I'm doing a bit of shading and lining with this walnut around the mouth to bring it out. I'm going to do his lip a bit fleshy. I think I'm still going to go off-white with that. I'm going to do pink with his nose. Yes, any creative job requires you to heavily manage your emotional state and mental health in order to stay productive and creative. That, ding, 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 give Moonlight Minis 5 gold stars. People don't realize how important it is to pay attention to your mental and emotional health when you are a freelance artist or creator of any sort. They tend to think, oh, well, you enjoy what you're doing. You can just do it and do it and do it. In reality, that's poison. All right, so let's get his muzzle a lighter color. I'm going to shade it, but I'm going to at least block it in. Because the muzzle sticks out from underneath the hat, so we don't need the shading as strong there. Yeah. Yes, 5 gold stars for Moonlight Minis. And that's what people go into not understanding. They don't understand that their biggest barrier to being able to do the job, enjoy the job, and make a success of the job is often themselves, because they haven't given themselves enough time in the equation. You might get energy pennies out of painting now because you really enjoy it. So like maybe when you sit down to paint at night, you get really excited and happy and relaxed, and you come out of it energized and excited for the next day. But that dynamic can change a lot when you start to do it for a living. Suddenly it doesn't give you energy anymore. Now it's taking energy from you because now it's your job and there's pressure. There's money you have to make. There's people you have to satisfy. Before you only had to satisfy yourself. So it's going to take the walnut and blacken his little dark eyes. Oh, meeting time. Yeah, Cornico. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, David doesn't do commissions either. Yeah, you could. Imagine if you have a spouse or a partner, that's probably the best people to keep an eye on your mental state and to remind you to take deep breaths and to take a walk and to go out to a movie with them or whatever to regenerate. Right. David does that a bit for me. Like at this point, I'm pretty good at managing myself. But if he sees me workaholic on something, he will give me the whole "let's just play Overwatch tonight" kind of speech. Right. Your cats will at least like pull you out of like the total obsession, right? Because you have to feed them, and they're not gonna be very good humored if you forget to feed them. the eyeball here is resisting paint a bit, so I'm going to use a full strength walnut on it. Yeah, but Agent Marvel, the funny thing is, it will take less work to make a living at it than traditional arts. Traditional art tends to be very subjective, right? So you put out a painting and you hope someone likes it enough to buy it. Whereas with miniatures, it's pretty easy to paint something that people will like and pay for as long as you are studying your market and, and you've done your research. So what I found very ironic when I started this whole road of selling my miniatures is I came from art school. I saw people in art school with me who were struggling to sell pots or pottery or whatever, right? So there were a ton of people, doing it, and they're all different, and you've got to like really nail the look or the color, or it's got to be just right for a person to buy it. But miniatures, I was making more money just selling, on commission at my game store than some of my art school peeps were making, trying to make a living on the side, right? So that's the thing that is also interesting about miniatures, is that, yeah, it's hard to earn enough to make a living as an artist, period. But it's easier with miniatures. It's easier to make money with miniatures than it is with a lot of other arts. I would say photography, though, maybe if you really have developed a good eye and good equipment for photography, you can get out there and make some cash. So that art form, I would say, is very accessible as far as making it a profession. I have a friend who just took it on as like a sideline profession and is already starting to rule her life. She's really got a good eye from action shots with the camera. She's trying to do canine events like dog sports and stuff like that, and there's a lot of demand for that. So yeah, she's already overbooked. And she just started doing it, I would say, probably around like 8 months ago is when she started to get serious. And she has really good camera and everything. So she was already doing it as a hobby. Yeah. Yeah, Moonlight. That's true. Well, and that can be the same with writing. Like, do you have an in? Oh, in both fields, it's possible to rise to the top if you're exceptional and have hard work. But again, you still run into that whole, it's kind of subjective. You could do a painting that to you is the pinnacle of what you were striving for, and still only, not really have people really connect with it, right? It's just the way it is. And you can do that with miniatures too. I mean, there would be times when I was selling minis on eBay that I would paint a mini that I knew was not going to be popular, but I really wanted to paint it. I just knew I wouldn't get as much money for it, and I didn't. Yeah, digital art is different. Yep. Digital art can also just be, you can sell all sorts of copies of that work, right? I guess you can do that with regular stuff too, with prints. Now, there's going to be a lot of shadow, I think, on the back of the head here, so let's check that out. Yeah, see, almost all of that is in shadow. There's a little bit of reflected light. You can see it there bouncing off the bottom of his fur. So I'll do a little bit. Yes, correct. Moonlight, listen it. Preach it. Preach it. Yep. Yep. Right. And see that now you're talking writing. Now this has a lot in common with writing. When you indie publish like I do. There's a reason that a lot of indie authors call themselves author entrepreneurs, because that's what you're doing. You're starting your own business. It's why I held off doing it and going indie for a bit, is that I didn't really want to run my own extra business on top of my painting. But the painting business it does not require as much as the writing business will. So, because I mostly depend on my Patreon and my Reaper stuff. So I decided after all that I would go for it. But yeah, the author stuff, I have to do everything. I have to learn everything. I have to track my accounts. I'm going to have to I still have to do like tax stuff and track my expenditures for painting, but writing has a lot more expenditures. But yeah, thanks there for the stuff. Thanks for the painting big stuff. My Patreon is my love. It is still the thing that keeps me going, quite literally. But yeah, Moonlight, it's exactly it. And that's what a lot of people don't get. I read Quora a lot lately because I just accidentally got onto it, and I like reading Mercedes Lackey's responses to aspiring writers. And the thing I notice even in the comments is just that bunch of people saying, well, I don't want to do all that work. They want to just put out a book and make $1 million, right? They don't want to do all that work. And so understand when you go into some of these creative endeavors that there's a lot of work that doesn't involve making the stuff. And I'm going to make it, I think I'm going to make his ears darker on the back. But yeah, Moonlight's exactly right. Aw, that's cute, Kuriko. Right, exactly. Because, okay, so that's kind of like my first book. Like, because you start with a mini that you really like, and then you have to work on it for, in my case, 12 years, to get it to a point where it's publishable, i.e. showable to the world. So essentially, he probably had to start and then repaint and retune and retune and retune. And as he did it, he chose to put in his 10,000 hours worth of crap, his 300 hours worth of crap on one miniature. Just the 10,000 hours rule, guys all probably have heard of that. So we'll go dark there. I'm going to darken down the top here because shadows. And blend it into the ears a bit. There we go. Then we just have that little bit that's going to be lighter. Oh, good, Tyler. Thanks. Yeah, my tubes of you have gone a little bit by the wayside just because when I started getting serious about the book and I really wanted to have it out after I turned 50, before I turned 51, I was just like, okay, this is it. Let's just go. So my YouTube got shelved a bit because the book was important to me. So, all right. So on the ears, let's just do this way. I've got this color. We're almost done with the stream. Yeah, exactly, Agent Marvel. Yeah, that's what happens to people who, gamers who start stores too. Because if you think about it, you love the hobby, you love gaming. You think, I'm going to start a game store and it's going to be awesome. But then there's the tax and the inventory control and the customer relations and the organizing events and a lot of that is just stuff that your average game store owner probably didn't bargain for. So if you see a lot of game stores close, it's probably more common nowadays that it's probably a little easier to make it because I think there are enough resources out there now that people know what they're getting into, right? So wet blending here. Yeah, I always say that, Polly, actually. What I typically tell people is that painting is an amazing side hustle. Depending on how much time you have to devote to it on the side, you can make a decent chunk of money every week. It depends on how much you're willing to put into it. It's always the case, right? You get in what you give, or you get out what you put in. But you can, especially not so much when you're, okay, so two choices. I've seen both of these work. Either you like to paint fast and clean and you just do a bunch of stuff like that for Etsy, eBay, your friends, whatever. You can make, 25, 30 bucks a figure maybe, yeah, and you put out 4 figures a week, you make over 100 bucks, whatever. Or you can up your game and try to target a higher end market and make a lot more per miniature. And which one you want to do really depends on like your brain, like how you function best, right? But I find that those are the 2 roads I typically see. The road, if you're good with an airbrush, you can probably do the high numbers, decent quality, and get quite fast at it. And that's what turns into like painting studios, like Miniature Monthly. Aaron started out just doing a painting studio, I believe, and then it kind of took off once the Patreon thing got added in. The other thing is, if you get good, you can start a Patreon and see if you can attract a fan base that way. But that's another like building thing and a time commitment and stuff like that. Yeah, the thing about painting for friends and family is that then it can get very hard when you decide to make it an official side gig and they may not understand that you need to raise your prices. So be ready for that uncomfortable discussion. Now, maybe you have friends and family who are really supportive of you and they're like, yes, you should charge more. Your work is great. And then that's obviously the ideal right there. People who really support you. So that's just the wet blend to set up the ear color on the top of the head there. And it's quick and fast. And because there's all this texture, it looks great. It looks blended. If it was smooth, we would see all the brush strokes. But because the hairs are there sculpted in, it actually hides that. Struggle with pricing your stuff? I mean, the best thing you can do if it's a mental war with you for doing it is to figure out how much, and this is what I did back in the day, figure out how much you want to make per hour. What is your hourly rate? Time how long it takes you to paint your average miniature and price accordingly. And if you find that you can't sell your stuff for that level, then like drop it by, 10%, see if it'll sell, 25%, or understand that you're going to have to get better before you can demand the type of money that you want for your miniatures. And then put the effort into getting better, getting to the level where you can sell a miniature for $100, right? But I felt eBay was very freeing for me, Mr. Nobody, because when I put a model up on eBay, I wasn't pushing anybody. They decided how much it was worth. I would set it at a fairly low price to start with so it would attract attention. And then whatever it went for was how much it was worth. And so people were out there, and I had been painting for friends at the game store and stuff, and I would get lucky if they would pay me 10 or 20 bucks. But when I went on eBay and started getting 50 and 60 bucks, I knew what my work was worth. And that gave me the confidence to price it higher. And then as my prices went up, as I got better and better and got more known and got a bigger stable of people who were watching for my stuff, then when you hit that $100 a mini mark, or, the $150 mini, or one of your minis goes to $225 like mine did, then I think my highest on eBay ever was $300. But yeah, if you have a hard time with speed painting, then you probably want to go the quality route, which is actually, I think, easier on yourself and easier to, just less pressure in some ways. Yeah, Cornico, exactly. Because you should charge so much for these as long as it's not me. All right. So we're going to have to do his other fur at another time. So I'm going to have to write up a card for the fur color because I didn't just use walnut. I used a mixture. So I'm going to grab one of my little cards and do a swatch. Do a couple swatches. No, that was my top out. So Polly, my normal model at that time, and given that was like 22 years ago. My normal level at that time was around 150, I want to say. 125, 150 per model on eBay. These days I hear Etsy is the place to go for painted minis and not eBay, but no idea. So I'm going to put down my walnut. But yeah, more consistently was 125, 150. I was painting a couple of models a week, and back at that time, if I scored a real big one, and then I, it was really erratic was the problem with it. That's why I do Patreon. Like, by the time I was ready to freelance again, because I pretty much just stopped freelancing, moved back home, got a moderately real job at the local GW store while I figured out what to do, and then I got the job with Reaper, so I moved to Texas and worked full-time for Reaper for 17 years. But by the time I was ready to go freelancing again, I knew that it wasn't going to work unless I had a stable income stream, and that Patreon was around, and I also had spent that 2.5 decades building up my reputation as a painter so that people knew who I was. So I was pretty sure I could make the Patreon work as my main income source. So you got to look at the main thing about freelancing for a painter. It can be like having different income streams. It can be having like a job that you work 25 hours a week, and then you do painting for the rest, and you have a Patreon. Maybe you do Twitch like I do. Also, maybe you do commissions. Maybe you do coaching. Maybe you do all these things. A lot of the freelance painters I know who are making a full-time living at it, they're doing everything. They're doing coaching. They're doing a Patreon. They're doing Twitch or YouTube. They're doing whatever. So yeah, you stay open to breaking it out and getting money from different sources. So like maybe Moonlight could speak to this, because you sell your STL files, right, on what is that place that you can, as a sculptor, you can put them up. And then you also probably work for companies, and maybe you also do, I don't know if you do commission sculpts or not, but there's My Mini Factory, thanks. Yeah. So there's all these ways that you can diversify so that, and maybe if you got a Patreon, all that kind of thing, then if one of those things goes and tanks, you're okay, right? You're still okay because you've got the other income streams. So that can be, diversification of income streams can be a big one. Yeah, thanks, Imagine. But yeah, so, and it's the same thing with writing. Authors will always advised to have more than one income stream. So like, don't put all your eggs on Amazon, for example. Things like that. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, Agent Marvel. Yeah, because that's why we did eBay. What we would do eBay in the old days to get our name out there, get attention, and to build a stable of buyers. And then you would just start doing commission work, private commission work for those buyers, because they'd inevitably ask if you would. And that was where the real money was. Because at commission rates, then you could charge what you wanted. Oh, to reach out to other veterans with the mini painting stuff? Surprised there's no I know another veteran who mini paints. Walnut, pardon me, I have to write down what I'm doing here. Walnut, nut brown, creamy ivory. And that's in a 2, 1, 1. Plus a bit. Because it was 1 plus a bit for the ivory. And this is creamy ivory. There. So got my things. Yep. Yeah, she has Patreon. Okay. Nice. Nice, Imagine. Yeah, so there you go. Also is Christine's got a bunch of different ways to pull in cash also. So, and that's how you make it work. Like a lot of the time you stay versatile. And the other thing to remember when you do that, and this is very true for me, is pay attention to your reaction. You don't have to do all the things, because if there's one of those things you really don't like, don't enjoy at all, don't make yourself do it. One thing that I've learned that I do not enjoy very much is one-on-one coaching. So I've slowly scaled it out of my Patreon, and I will probably eliminate it by the end of this year. Put Mousling back. And tomorrow we're back to Dude. And we want to finish Dude because the next mini after Dude is Julie. So it's Burgermeister tomorrow. We're really getting close to done with him now. We just need to worry about some of the green. Maybe I'll work on the green tomorrow. If I feel like NMM Gold, we'll finish up the NMM Gold. But we did the leather. I feel like he's really close. Really, really close. Right, exactly. So Etsy essentially people are looking for probably lots of models at a bargain rate, right? Maybe they're game masters, and stuff like that. So we got to finish this dude so we can start this lady. Yes, thank you all for hanging out. Had a lot of talk today, but I like talky streams. I hope you all have a lovely day. And yeah, so for Friday, we will be back with the stuff. And thanks for tuning in, Christine. Thanks for weighing in on the freelance debacle. I appreciate it. You're 100% 50 gold stars to you. Yep. I'll hang her. I wanted to say one thing because I will be streaming this weekend on Saturday, twitch.tv/paintingbig. And I'm going to be working on this model because she's, for my Patreon, I'm using her as a kind of a tutorial on mixing, but I want to get her skin actually to a finished state by the time I work on the hair this month. So we'll be working on skin tones, mixing skin tones, and applying them on a bust on Saturday. So, all right, that's enough. I will announce that again tomorrow. Hopefully I'll remember. But I'll see you guys around.